from Madison, Wisconsin. I'm here with my fellow Tibetan community, and we Tibetans in Madison, Wisconsin are fired up to vote on November 5th. Yeah!
Very honored to have among us a Tibetan who is the mayor of Cincinnati, Ohio. Please have a wonderful news today. Aftab is coming to our community. Are we ready for that? And all the board members unanimously said, most welcome, we are going to make it. And thanks for coming here again once more. And we are very happy among us, our always dear Mayor, Satya, too. Please give her a big welcome. And we look up to American flag. You know why? Because it gives us a sense of freedom and sense of pride. And today it is really one of the special days where our Mayor, Satya, meets our Tibetan mayor from Cincinnati, Ohio. Once again, thank you so much for coming. And today, we have Tibetan student, WTA Sunday school students would like to perform 2 dances. So we, before Aftab takes the stage, we would like the students to start their dance. Okay.
남지 정면 저거래야我从给家人母亲负责下班点呀，给门那么点着你要么接受。
Thank you everyone for joining us today in giving a warm welcome to Mayor Aftab Pureval to our Tibetan Community Center. As you all probably know, Mayor Pureval is the first Tibetan American to hold a high political position in the United States. He was born in Ohio to a Tibetan mother and Indian father. He studied political science at Ohio State and later studied law at the University of Cincinnati College of Law. Initial years, he worked as attorney at different levels, both private and the federal. He started his political career in late 2016. He was elected as the clerk of courts for Hamilton County, Ohio. He brought a lot of changes at the clerk of courts in 2017. Mayor Aftab is the first Tibetan American to run for Congress in 2018 and even received President Obama's endorsement as well as the support of many from the Tibetan community. In 2021, he became the first Asian American mayor of Cincinnati and the first Tibetan American mayor in the United States. At the time, His Holiness Dalai Lama had written to Mayor Aftab, and as I quote, "I have been encouraged to see that despite living in new circumstances, by and large, they and their children are able to maintain their sense of identity while contributing."
This is incredible. This is really wonderful. First of all, this picture over my right shoulder is from about 20 years ago. So this is a youthful, joyful Mayor Aftab with no children, no gray hairs. well rested, excited about the future. But truly, I'm so excited to be here. You know, this in many ways feels like coming home. Believe it or not, I was just telling, and first of all, a huge round of applause for your incredible mayor, Satya. Your mayor and I are already friends. We see each other regularly throughout the year because your mayor is one of the national leaders reach out to when they have questions about water purification or tree canopies or how to actually bring climate justice and climate action to local municipalities. So you should be incredibly proud of your mayor. But I was yeah, please give it up. But I was mentioning it feels like coming home because I was mentioning to the mayor, I think this is the largest crowd of Tibetans that I've ever spoken to inside the United States, which is exciting for me because usually I'm surrounded by white people, which is awkward laughter. That's fine. Which is less exciting. Yeah, exactly, Satya. You know, but I think what I'm particularly touched by and inspired by is not just being with you all, with fellow Tibetans, but seeing how big the community is, how much pride you have in this center, the fact that you have Sunday school, the fact that you are raising your children in this country but within the Tibetan culture. I understand how difficult that is, how that doesn't just happen, how the community has to be intentional, working together collaboratively to make that happen. And it's important because as Tibetans in Tibet and around Asia continue to be targeted and persecuted, the only way our culture is celebrating our culture and dancing and just joyfully being free and Tibetan all at the same time. That is something that I think we should be intentional about celebrating, because that's unfortunately not the lived experience for so many of us in other places in the world. And that's why it was really important for me to come here. I've been campaigning for Vice President Harris throughout the country, but I really wanted to come to Madison and specifically to come to this Tibetan community because I'm just so inspired as I watch from afar all the work that you're doing to maintain and preserve that culture. And my experience is probably not unlike a lot of your experience. My mom was born in Tibet, and when the communists took over, my grandfather actually took up arms and was part of the Chushigundrik freedom fighters, and so battled for as long as he could. Obviously, as we all know, Chushigundrik warriors ushered the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, outside of Tibet and into India. And my grandparents and my mom, who was just a baby at the time, also made their way through the Himalayas, through Nepal and into India, where she grew up as a refugee. She grew up, at least in part, in southern India at the Bailakupe camp. Ultimately went to college in Delhi, where she met my father, who's from Punjab, India, and they got married. And in 1980, my dad, who was a little bit crazy, as many Punjabis are, looked at a map of our great country, and from sea to shining sea, from New York to California, this man literally could have gone anywhere. And he chose Beaver Creek, Ohio. I have no idea what he was thinking, but it's true. They immigrated there in 1980. I was born a couple years later. I'm half Tibetan, half Indian. I have a Persian name for some reason. I'm 6'3", but I'm all Midwest. I was born and raised in Ohio. Went to public schools, and I'm really proud of the fact that not only am I a Tibetan and Indian American, but that I am specifically from the Midwest. I'm a Midwest Asian, right? And so are you. And that is something to be really, really proud of. Because again, just like my dad, you guys could have gone anywhere. And you were like, Wisconsin. That seems like a good place to go. the whole family's lactose intolerant, let's go to the cheese capital of the world. Makes a lot of sense. So I went to public schools and then off to Ohio State for college, where I was student body president, my first taste of politics. As your secretary mentioned, I then went to Cincinnati for the first time, actually. I didn't grow up in Cincinnati, went to law school there. And my first real job was in Washington, D.C. I practiced antitrust litigation for a large multinational law firm. Got homesick, so I moved back to Cincinnati, where I served in President Obama's Department of Justice. I was a special assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of Ohio in Cincinnati. And then most recently, I was the global brand attorney for Oil of Olay P&G skincare company, which made me a beauty attorney, which is ridiculous. So in 2016, I decided to run for office. Now, I didn't run for Congress or mayor or city council. In 2016, I decided to run for the Hamilton County Clerk of Courts, right? And so this is not a sexy position. This is not a high-profile position. This is as local as it gets. This person is elected, but they run the local courthouse, right? It is basically a bureaucratic position. But I was passionate about justice reform, and I was passionate about running for office. And it was kind of a perfect marriage of my subject matter expertise and experience and an opportunity to run for office. So I ran. And when I would tell Democrats that I wanted to run for the Hamilton County Clerk of Courts, they would say, "What is wrong with you? Are you kidding me? You're going to run for an office no one has ever heard of or care about in conservative Hamilton County? You have to run against a 2-term Republican incumbent who can't be beaten? And to do all that, you have to leave your job at P&G as an attorney? What is wrong with you? By the way, you're a brown dude named Aftab. That is not a strong ballot name in Cincinnati. I'm going to get some of you guys to laugh. I'm going to keep trying. So what is wrong with you? And Democrats would say this to me: "Are you crazy? You're going to give all of this up to run for an office that no one has ever heard of?" And that was just my mom. She's really hoping I make it to med school. All right, I'm going to keep going. All right, so I ran anyway. I ran as hard as I could in the conservative parts and in the progressive parts. And at the end of the day, I won. And by winning, I became the first Democrat in 100 years to be elected to the Hamilton County Clerk of Courts. So, you know, when I was talking to Democrats, in addition, it's all true what I just said. They did not think I had a chance to win. But when I would ask them, okay, what would give me a better chance to win? Help me out here. And they suggested that I change my name to Adam or to Al, something. Oh, that makes you laugh. Oh, I see. Something to anglicize it, right? To make white people more comfortable with my brown candidacy. But and those folks weren't wrong, right? It sounds racist now, but in hindsight, when you think about it, if you see AFTAB on a yard sign, it doesn't immediately occur to you that that is someone running for office, that that's a human being, right? They were concerned that people would think it was a standardized test or a prescription drug or an insurance company, right? Aflac. Yeah, quacked that a lot. But instead of changing my name or running away from my identity, which I'm incredibly proud of, I decided to make it the strength of my campaign. So I ran as hard as I could. Oh, thank you. So I raised enough money. To get TV commercials, and I know you're in Wisconsin, so you're probably getting crushed with political ad campaigns. I'm sorry about that. So in my TV commercial, every time I said my name, a big yellow duck puppet popped up and repeated it in the Aflac voice, right? So not dignified, but incredibly memorable. And on the strength of that TV ad, I was ultimately elected. Running for office as a Tibetan American, even just as an Asian American, Indian American, whatever it is, running for office with an ethnic name, particularly in the United States, particularly in the Midwest, is very challenging. It is harder. It costs more money. You have to be more creative. You have to, think of ways in order to connect with people who don't have your shared
experiences, who probably don't know what a Tibetan is or what Tibet is. And so when I would go to church festivals in Cincinnati, or I would go to just general events and festivals, high school basketball games, and I would introduce myself and say, hey, I'm Aftab, I'm running for the clerk of courts. The question I got asked most often is, what is an Aftab, right? So like truly, so the obstacle for even just getting people to understand what my name is was daunting. And politics at its core is about empathy, right? When you're at your local events and you're talking to your community, the person in front of you, the 2 minutes that you have with that person is your chance to connect with them, introduce yourself, and ultimately get their support. So if you have a name that they can't pronounce, if you're from a country they've never heard of, if you have an accent, all of these things are barriers in order to actually connecting with the person in front of you. And so it was really, really hard, right? I had to work even harder. And what is even more confusing for someone like me is that growing up in a place like Beaver Creek, Ohio, which is as homogeneous as you might imagine, I had a lot of identity challenges as a kid when I was coming up. I had a lot of kind of self-doubt about whether I was a Punjabi, whether I was Tibetan, whether I was American, and which percentage was I honoring more versus less? And how could I be all of those things at the same time in a place like Beaver Creek where there are no Tibetans? Growing up, I was never around Tibetans unless I was in Nepal or India. Even now, as a really pretty well-known Tibetan, it's a surreal experience for me, because a lot of Tibetans online and on social media know who I am, but I'm never around Tibetans. And so when I got the chance to be in front of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and I touched down in Dharamsala, I was shocked by how many Tibetans recognized me and came up to me and asked me for a picture. Like it was as if I was back in Cincinnati. And so it's a reminder of really just how critically important staying together as a local community, as a diaspora, how important it is to continue to protect and preserve the culture. When I was growing up, there were no other Tibetan families in the area. So of course we didn't have a Tibetan Sunday school. Of course we didn't have a center like this. The way that my parents tried to protect their Indian and Tibetan cultures within me was basically not vacationing ever as a family, so we could save money to go to Kathmandu and to Delhi every summer when I was a child. So the moral of that anecdote about my own personal life and how I grew up is that the kids that are in front of me today won't feel that isolation, and they won't feel like they're alone, and they'll feel like they're connected to something bigger than themselves, which is, as someone who as a child really struggled with my identity and my place of belonging, I can't say how much that means and will mean to these kids. I'm sure they complain is exactly why you should be thinking about running for office. Or at the very least, you should be engaging in the political process in this community right here in Madison. It's so inspiring to see what you all have built together. But in order for our community to truly create deep roots in this country, we have to take our own responsibility and our own share of the burden of leading. The only way that Tibetan Americans' policies and priorities and values will not just be honored, but enacted, is if we are engaged in the political process. And so what that means from my perspective is registering to vote, definitely voting, and ultimately either working for or volunteering for a candidate, or you yourself running for office. It is definitely challenging, as I've already articulated, but there are so many other Asian American communities, be they Korean or Indian or Chinese or Japanese, that have figured out a way, particularly in areas where there are dense communities, to organize, support each other, and ultimately get elected. And that will have a significant impact, not just on your day-to-day lives and not just on the local issues that you care about, but it will show your kids that in this country, they can be whatever they want to be. Whether it's a doctor or a firefighter or a lawyer or even a mayor or a council member. It's not just for them. It's for us too. Our voice matters too. Our voice should be respected too. Our issues should be priorities too. And that won't happen until we take responsibility for our own political action. Obviously, I'm a surrogate for and incredibly supportive of Vice President Harris, but I'm not necessarily here to give an overtly partisan speech other than to say this. I did have an opportunity, once in a lifetime opportunity, to have an audience with His Holiness. And I got an opportunity to ask him one question. And so I asked His Holiness, as I think the only Tibetan American elected in the country, what can I do to advocate for my people and my community? And I was kind of surprised. His Holiness, you know, he's obviously very kind and peaceful, but he kind of pushed back on me a little bit. And I was like, oh my gosh, I offended the Dalai Lama. That's a problem. But he pushed back and he said, you should not be focused only on Tibetans. In the position of power that you have, you should be focused on alleviating the suffering of all sentient beings. And I was like blown away by that. Because this is a man who leads our community, who's been living in exile since he was a child, who literally can't go home. And in front of him is a mayor of a relatively large city in the United States. And instead of, I think most leaders would take that opportunity to advocate for something very specific, but instead he challenged me to think even broader and bigger about suffering writ large. You know, when I think about that framing, what are the most important issues that affect all of us? Maybe not equally, but certainly wherever we are in the globe. And this is an issue that His Holiness has really prioritized. It is climate change. It is the human activity that is creating global warming and creating our planet to get hotter and hotter. And there are obviously consequences for all of us as human beings, but there are profound consequences for so many other sentient beings that we will never be able to get back unless we take overt and aggressive action to mitigate the challenges that we're experiencing. And this is the only overtly political thing I will say. I don't know who you're supporting in this race, but if you care about climate change, if you believe climate change is real and that it is an existential threat to all sentient beings, and that you, as a human with rational thought, you as a human, because of your actions, are creating that crisis and that trauma. If you believe that humans should take action to solve that, or at least alleviate it for the world, then there's really only one candidate to support. Because there's only one candidate who actually believes climate change is real and that we should fight hard against it. You know, it's just so wonderful to get a chance to travel the country and see different Asian and Indian communities. But like I said, I've spoken to Zooms with Tibetan students, but I've never been in person with so many Tibetans in a room. And you know, there are often really, really awful experiences that happen because we are Tibetans. Obviously, the awful experience of being forced to leave our country. First Asian American mayor. But if I am the last, then I will have been a massive failure. So I hope that this isn't our last time being in touch. I'll share my contact information with anybody who wants it. Please reach out to me if there's anything I can do to support you. And when times get tough, and when you're facing challenges, and when you feel like you're losing hope, I like to remind myself one thing, and it always makes me feel better. You are Tibetan. You can do anything. Thank you, guys. Other questions? I'm trying to soak this up, guys. Anything else? Yeah, in the back.
My name is Pureval, and you talked about imposter syndrome, and I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on how you overcame your imposter syndrome, or person.
Yeah, look, imposter syndrome, it probably affects, well, I can only speak for myself, but imposter syndrome is something that I, particularly earlier in my career, I really struggled with. You know, obviously my mixed identities and mixed cultural backgrounds contributed a lot to that. But I think ultimately, you know, my imposter syndrome that has been probably most relevant to this conversation was when I was running for mayor. And so, you know, being mayor, as opposed to, and I'm not, this is not throwing shade or criticizing, but as opposed to like legislators, mayors, it's a very tough job because it's a real job, right? So if there's a mass shooting in your community, God forbid, people don't want their mayor to hold a hearing or to give a speech. They want the mayor to catch the perpetrators and make sure it never happens again, right? If there's a snowstorm, they want the mayor to plow the streets and don't want to hear excuses. And so in my city, it's a very, you know, it's not an enormous city. It's about 330,000 people, but it's a very diverse city. So it's 50% white, 44% black. And so with that much density in a relatively small geographical footprint, there are real challenges with gun violence, with generational poverty, with public schools that are underperforming. And everybody looks to the mayor to fix it. And so you, as mayor, you're dealing with these generational traumas that you cannot possibly fix in 4 or 8 years. At risk for a better future, not even necessarily for yourself, but for the kids that you want to ultimately have. As a Tibetan, it's hard not to be inspired by just being a Tibetan and just seeing how hard our community fights and perseveres and survives. And so this is true, when I think about stressful situations that I'm in, or challenging situations, or times when I'm insecure or not sure if I'm able to accomplish my goals, I always think about our shared history and how far we've come despite those obstacles. Who else? Pointing at this gentleman who does not look happy to ask a question.
And the Tibet cause and equal and Republican and Democratic benefit for Tibetan cause, but then comes to be the leader to run the entire country, and I have difficult to trust Trump. So therefore, we hope the Kamala will do better. And if she doesn't do better, we'll throw out next time. And we'll get.
Let's get into it, Lama. Let's go. Here we go. I was trying not to be part of it.
Thank you.
You know, it is really surprising. I talked about my connection with the community largely being on social media. And when I first more effective in opposing communist Chinese policies, I couldn't disagree with you more. I promise you, Donald Trump does not make a distinction between communist Chinese government leaders and Tibetans. I promise you that that's the case. His governing philosophy is to acquire power, to centralize power, and then to abuse power. In the same way that dictators and fascist regimes and communist Chinese leadership do every day. That is what he is aspiring to do. And that is not just rhetoric, that is enumerated in Project 2025, where he has laid out a plan to do all of that. So why does he want all that power? Why does he attack institutions that are supposed to check that power, whether it's the media or the Justice Department or our court system? It's because he wants to use that power in order to get whatever policy proposal he wants to get done and not have to deal with dissent. As a community that has been victimized, terrorized by that kind of fascist governing principle, I will do everything I possibly can, including running through a wall, to stop him and elect Vice President Harris as our first Asian American president in this country. And I would encourage all of you to also think about, I mentioned climate change. Donald Trump believes it's a hoax. He doesn't believe that it's real. And that is going to have catastrophic consequences for the next generation and the generation after that. He does not respect immigration or legal immigrants. The only reason my parents were able to come to this country and give me a chance to be mayor is because they were welcomed. One of the reasons this community is able to come together and be empowered and supported is because the political leadership in Madison, Wisconsin, and the community at large welcomes and supports you. Springfield, Ohio, which is 45 minutes north of where my city is going through an incredible amount of trauma and challenges because their own senator, J.D. Vance, is spreading conspiracy theories and lies and targeting his own constituents. And all of those Haitian immigrants are in this country legally. How easy is it for that criticism and those conspiracy theories to be applied to the Tibetan community? Do you think in their mind they make a distinction? They don't. They don't want anyone coming to this country, legally or illegally. They're threatened by the diversification and by the strength of the country, which is immigration. The idea that people are coming here because where they were was less free. And now that we are here, it's our job not to shut the door or to pull up the ladder. It's to help the next generation become Americans, have that civic pride, and most importantly, lead, so that the values and principles that allowed my family to go from refugees to mayor, so that we preserve that dream for the next generation. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. My question is this, right? I've already voted, by the way, by the absentee ballots, and we've done our civic duty. We've voted blue, by the way. My question is this, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years? Do you see possibly Senate, governorship, or any higher office? That's it.
Thank you, Josh. Yeah, there's a lot of rumors about me doing other things. So let me just state very clearly that I'm running for mayor next year, re-election. In Cincinnati, you get 2 4-year terms as mayor. So in 5 years, so hopefully I win next year, and I'll get 4 more years. And so, look, I am very ambitious, obviously. I'm proud to be ambitious. Thanks. And so if I can, being mayor is the best job I've ever had. I talked a little bit about my other roles. It's really inspiring. Every day I wake up and my job is to make my city better for the people living there. Like, that's just such a cool job. Like, and I have so much influence and opportunity to actually bring those ideas to life. And so if there's an opportunity for me to continue serving in politics, obviously I'm going to be very interested in that. But Tashi, just to be very honest, running statewide in Ohio is particularly challenging for someone like me. Not just my name and ethnicity, but also my political profile. Former President Trump is probably going to win Ohio this election by more than he wins Texas. Just to give you an idea of how Ohio is unfortunately challenging for Democrats. And at the local level, being mayor is like it, right? Like, you know, your mayor can tell you. It's like, you know, this is like the coolest job, and you have the most influence and opportunity to create transformational change. You know, the other thing that people don't realize is I have a wife, right? And she's a doctor with her own career. She makes 5 times more money than I do. So if anyone should be altering their career, it's me for her, right? And then I have 2 small kids, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I travel a lot as mayor, as it is. And it's really hard because it's not lost on me that I'm doing the 2 most important things that I'll ever do. Being mayor to 2 small boys, or excuse me, being father to 2 small boys, and being mayor to my city. So, you know, right now I'm trying to figure out how I can have a demanding and fulfilling career while also being accessible and supportive of my family. And it's particularly in the political industry, it's actually really quite challenging. You know, the other challenge is college is not cheap, and those 529 accounts are not where they need to be. So I might have to go back in the private sector for a little while before I can come back into public service. So to answer your question, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going to be in 10 years. Yeah. We'll go to you next, okay? We're going to do you next. What's your name? So he needs a mic. Go ahead, Sarah.
Thank you for coming over and talking to us. We are really proud of you. My question is, most of the time what I hear is pick out of the true evil. So, and also I wanted to ask you, why is Democratic so against having a third party? I know both parties talk about each other being, this one is evil, that one is evil. But looking at the Democrats, I've noticed for the past 10 years at least, they try not to have a third party out. What is the reason?
Yeah.
Why is it?
Great question, Sarah. Look, I think it is, in my city at least, the local races are nonpartisan, and so we actually do have a third party. It's called the Charter Party, and the Charter Party was born out of rampant corruption that was happening in City Hall in Cincinnati like 70 years ago. And so this kind of reform party was created and has survived all of these generations later. I think at the local level, it's really, it's pretty accessible to create third parties and support them and get them elected. I think at the national level, the challenge for a third party is about all of the institutions that prevent third parties from getting onto the ballot and from having ballot access. It is fundamentally unfair. It is biased towards 2 parties. And you know, I think it is an important conversation to have about whether that's, why is Vice President Harris trying to pack the court? Why is she trying to change the number? Well, it's true that we've had 9 since 1879 or whatever that year is, but we've also, in that entire time, never had Supreme Court justices accepting extravagant gifts from people who have cases in front of them. It is a blatant and naked conflict of interest. And when newspapers and media outlets called these justices out about it, they said, sat there, so no big deal. The reason she is now advocating for changing our Supreme Court or reforming it is because we have people openly saying, yes, I'm conflicted, but no, I am not going to recuse myself. And there's nothing you can do about it. And this is a court imbued with awesome authority and power. They literally just stripped women and girls of their right to bodily autonomy, dragging women and girls back to the 50s. The first time in a very long time, girls born today will have less rights than their mothers and their grandmothers because of this court that is openly accepting gifts. We say it all the time, but this is such an important election, particularly because of the issues that you're raising. What kind of democracy do we want? What do we want it to look like? How do we think it will best represent us? That's the first part, the easy part. The second part is going out and making it happen. And you do that by voting. Yes?
Have you ever done Gorsha, and will you do Gorsha today?
I haven't, but let's do it. Yeah, I'm in. Putting me on the spot, I love it. All right, we'll take one more question, yes, from one of our dancers.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm good.
What's your name?
My name's Tenzin.
How old are you?
I'm 15.
Tenzin, great. Can I tell you a quick story about Tenzin?
Yeah.
So I have an office, obviously mayor's office, and it's a huge office with like really tall walls, and so I was like, I need to get some art, right? And so there's a graffiti artist in Cincinnati named Tenzin. So I was thinking, oh, this guy must be, like half or quarter, or he must be Tibetan in some way. Never met him, but I heard about him, and so I bought a piece of his art before meeting him to put up on my wall. And so when he came to deliver it, I was like, Tashidele, oh, it's so great to see. I didn't know there was another Tibetan in Cincinnati. And he was like, no, I'm just white. I just like the name. So I have this random guy's art in my office because anyway, whatever. Go ahead, Tenzin.
Okay.
Appropriation, that's what that's called.
So I'm still learning about politics. So
Okay.
my question today is about Project 2025.
Yeah.
So if it's something that Trump is actually planning on implementing, and if he has publicly talked about it, and if so, isn't there rules within the government that restrict the president's ability of dictatorship?
Yeah, there are. Actually, there are. Yes. There are, and there should be. But the Supreme Court recently said that the president is immune from actions taken as long as they are in furtherance of his job. So his inciting January 6th insurrection, his strategy to create fake electors in order to undermine your vote, those could arguably be all legal and fine because of this Supreme Court that I just got done talking to you about, their extravagant private planes and gifts, etc. So yeah, theoretically, there are checks and balances on the president. Do I think that on day one, it's reasonable for him to get rid of the judiciary or, basically get rid of our democracy? No, I don't. But I think he wants to do that. And I think if we continue to ignore these fascistic and dangerous tendencies that he has, there will be a constant law enforcement is evil. all of a sudden that institution of justice that is so important for our democracy is all lies. Like that, do I think he's going to be a dictator immediately? No. But that is the path towards fascism and dictator, where there is no truth, right? Where nothing is agreeable, where he can just say anything. I mean, this is a guy who refuses to admit that he lost the election. And he's running for president. And he still doesn't think he lost. I mean, come on, what are we doing? The most powerful person in the world is so weak and insecure that he can't just admit that he lost? Like, why would we think it's okay to give that person nuclear weapons? Okay, I'm going to end on a happy note. I feel like it got a little dark there. I want to end by saying this. I am so excited to see not just what community leaders do as Tibetans in Madison, but I am so excited to watch these kids grow up and take their rightful place as leaders in the community.
This is spicy, yes? Very spicy. I remember last time. So I think it's a tiny
I did in the back way. We should just sit there. I was just going to go on the door.
Dumpy.
That's not you?
No.
That is something.
That was the other kid.
Hello.
콜로 그래서 저 보야지 레벨이야. 먼저 시경이랑 그래 남지고라. 아, 잠깐. 시경 능력이 남 두번 다시요. 저 이제 좀 되다. 그래 시경 능력이 되지라.
You did good. Oh, you guys
就是下这边，下这边。딴 데는 무슨?
Bring your chair here. Here. No, it's please tell me. You're gonna wait.
Hey everyone, it's Mayor Aftab coming to you from Madison, Wisconsin. I'm here with my fellow Tibetan community, and we Tibetans in Madison, Wisconsin are fired up to vote on November 5th.
Yeah!